Here we go. All right. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Wolf. How are you?
Good morning. Good. How are you doing? How was your
Well,
your week so far?
it's crazy. So we're actually recording this on Martin Luther King Day, Monday. It's a
hmm
bank holiday. It's a recognized holiday in our industry. But by the time this pops up on YouTube or on podcast, will be on Friday of this week. So crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So it's always I think there's certain holidays that let us reflect on, you know, how things change, and Martin Luther King Day is certainly one of those,
Yeah.
right? So it's
Yeah.
always good to think back and think about why we or how we were able to kind of grow, and how this individual was able to position themselves and use
Mhm.
their certain skill set and their gifts to change the world. So I think that's a really interesting thing to
Yeah.
think about, right? Not the point of our conversation today, but I think it's important to acknowledge that it's not just a day off, right? So
Yeah,
um,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So we were chatting a little bit last week. Obviously, we had a guest, but we wanted to. I think you had a vision. I think to maybe continue our topic this week and some things that we're being faced with just in the local market.
Yeah, yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about, you know, th- I think one of the big reasons, kind of coming out of our conversation with Stephanie is it seems like she was very, one of the reasons why she's so successful. She's very important having a plan, and then making sure that we are always constantly engaging with the people we want to serve, right? Be that, in our case, fellow agents or past clients, and always looking to kind of renew and grow. And I think that, some of the skill sets that some of our agents need, especially early on, is, what are some good reasons to reach out to older new clients? What are some good ways to keep clients engaged and to show gratitude to past clients? And what are some, and is it okay to like ask for referrals, right? All of us here, that are listening to this podcast probably are entrepreneurial in some sense. I'm sure we have quite a few real estate agents, people that work in that sphere, be them agents or lenders or title companies that need to grow their business by word of mouth. And obviously, and I know, just because I have some insight, but I know that's a lot of how Stephanie grew her business, right? Is she would work with,
Mhm.
some builders, and then they would kind of grow and reach out. And then the two of you put together that large networking group that really was able to grow her business in a very fast way. So I was hoping maybe we could get some insight from you on, on strategies you used to grow your personal
Mhm.
business, as well as, how you guys grew the construction resource group to what it is today, and how it was able to kind of, develop. And then, of course, we just kind of talk about some things, that tools that I've used to kind of reach out to my past clients and keep them
Mhm.
engaged all the time, right?
Mhm.
It's kind of focusing on continuing our theme in January here of like growth, renewal, and sticking to our plans to grow our business to make sure we're hitting our goals by the end of the year.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting. I was thinking about this last week when when we had our guest, and I think continuing to add value and be able to dissect information appropriately. So that we're just hit with from all industry partners to what in the seven county area, just around 18,000 realtors roughly in the seven county area.
hmm
And everyone has a different perception or whatnot. And I believe that one good tool in that is the annual property review. And I've been a big fan of the annual property review for a number of years, very similar to those who go to the dentist or have their car checked or their doctor, annually, biannually, whatever. I think it's important to stay in front of people because that's what affects them directly, right?
hmm
So if the market is skyrocketing up, well, in some neighborhoods it didn't, right? In some neighborhoods, well, it's pulling back. Well, in some neighborhoods it's not, So I think it's very hyper local, right? And
hmm
how do we continue to add value and monitor the market for people within our database or our sphere? And I've done that through a program that I called a 555 program. I think you and I've done that over the years. We've talked to our agents about it, but essentially, 5 calls a day, to people within your network or your sphere, adding 5 items of value per week. Those could be on social media, they could be via text, they could be via your local community, and working on your database 5 days a week. And then the last one is try to add 5 people to your network or your database per week or per month, however you navigate that.
hmm
And I think that doing that gives us a little bit larger reach, and we become the authority within our industry and our business, not just another talking head, if you will.
hmm No, I agree, right? And I think that that's that kind of structure is important to set up for yourself. Then obviously just making sure you're setting aside time to do it. Right. So we talked about time blocking. For me and for our accountability group here we have in our office, we try to do basically 2 hours a day, 4 days a week. Right. So Monday is meant to be a prospecting day, similar to what you're talking about, like reaching out, and obviously 2 hours is some time, right? So that could be all calls, right? Where if you're getting everyone on the phone, that could be 5 calls and you could be done, right?
Mhm.
If you're leaving voicemails, it could be 20, but that could also be doing some other marketing activity. It could be, creating your annual property review so that when you do your kind of subsequent prospecting calls on Wednesday, you have time, you have things to reach out and deliver, right? It could be doing your handwritten notes, could be, printing out flyers and doing door knocking if that's how you want to structure your business, right? So,
Mhm.
but just
Right.
committing 2 hours on Monday to doing prospecting, right?
Mhm.
Tuesday is active client reach. So if you have people who are under contract or are actively selling or buying, I think that's a good day to do your catch up, right? So a lot of times, if you made it to the weekend, you probably have written offers somewhere between Friday and Sunday, and are either they're waiting to hear back or have heard back by Monday. So Tuesday's a good day to get people caught up on where those are sitting.
Mhm.
Obviously, if you have people that are under contract, Tuesday's a good day. You're usually obviously today's a holiday, right? A lot of this are on Monday. So Tuesday, you probably have, maybe heard back from your inspector, or you're going to call with your
Mhm.
appraiser, or your,
Mhm.
your lenders to hear back from the appraiser, right? So Tuesday's a good day to touch base on that.
Mhm.
And then Wednesday is kind of prospecting day 2, right? So if you maybe, made some calls but didn't get all the way through your call flow on Monday, it's a good day to finish that. If you were creating material to have something to call on Monday, Wednesday's the day to make those calls. And then Thursday is finally past client follow up, right? So that's going to be looking back in years past, especially if you are in years, 2, 3, 4, 5, and on. You probably have some past clients, or if you were
Mhm.
coming from a similar industry, maybe you have clients that were, you helped rent an apartment, or that you helped buy a new build if you were on site or
Mhm.
something to that effect. Maybe you transferred over from the lending side. All sorts of reasons why you have a list of past clients that you can connect with and
Mhm.
engage with them, see how things are going, see if they have any needs for you right now. And obviously it's, especially if you've done the work up front and laid the groundwork, it's okay at that point to connect and just ask for if they have any referrals, right? Hey,
Mhm.
if you have any, friends, family, coworkers that, are looking to buy, sell, or, move a home, I hope I can count on you to share my name, right? So that's kind of our language we like to ask with. So not necessarily like, who do you got?
Right.
Just
Right.
I hope I can count on you to share my name and phone number with
Mhm.
them, right? So, and I think that's a good way to kind of bring them on your team.
Mhm.
I think it's a pretty non-abrasive way to ask for the
Mhm.
referral, because you're not necessarily like,
Mhm.
hey, give me their information, you
Right.
know, put them out there for me. It's just saying like, hey, if someone mentions to you, hey man, oh, yeah, me and my wife, we're pregnant, probably gonna need to go to a house. Just
Yeah.
kind of just go, hey, call my buddy Andrew. He took really good care of me a couple years ago, right?
Mhm.
That's all I
Mhm.
need. And if they call me, they call me. If they don't, they don't.
Right.
Either way, you did your job as, to think of me, and I was able to count on you and you were able to take care of me, right?
Right.
That's
And I
all we're
think it's
asking for.
about rewarding, people also with the act and the trend and the behavior, not the results, right? So
Exactly.
our friends and sphere and family can't control if someone, if they provide a referral and someone doesn't choose to work with us for one reason or another, right? But you,
Mhm.
you made a couple really good points, and something that came to mind was a gentleman told me years ago, it's not our client or our sphere, our friends or our prospects' job to remember us, right? It's our job to stay in front of them, right? And we do that a lot of ways. With the telephone's a great tool. I think social media is a great tool. Email is a great tool. Snail mail is a great tool. As some of you listening to this are very familiar with our program, but we have a Thrive program, which also has a snail mail component to it, and as well as a live component coming up here on February 3rd, I believe, with Matthew Gardner, our chief economist. So we have a few things that we do to stay in front of people to provide value. But we don't know sometimes that someone comes home from work or they get that email, that phone call, and they've just been transferred, right?
Mhm.
Or and maybe they're getting transferred to Colorado. Maybe they're getting transferred outside of Colorado. And like you alluded to earlier, people get married, they have children, they do get divorced. People unfortunately pass away. A lot of things drive things within real estate that I think if we're there as a trusted advisor and a resource, then we're doing what we need to be doing. But I also think the other piece of it is sometimes we fall victim of not sharpening the saw, right? So
Mhm.
we're busy, 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 and then all of a sudden we're not. And then all of a sudden we get that phone call, and maybe we don't know the geographic area very well, right? I've always
Mhm.
called that geographic competency, right?
Mhm.
That does happen, right? And so sometimes it's about understanding what we can and cannot do geographically, but then also being able to be a great resource. And an example of that is I recently got a phone call from someone who has a home down in Pagosa Springs.
Mhm.
Yes, we have a license in Colorado. Yes, we could drive the 6 hours each way. But the reality of it is, it's a completely separate market. It's a second home market. It also has its own MLS, its own board. The best decision for that is to refer that to someone local that can really be a great resource. And I would argue, I would argue Fort Collins is the same way, right? We have a team up there, we have offices up there. It's not our core market, our core competency, if you will. So I think sometimes agents fall victim to that. And we've seen that, right? We've seen listings in the Denver market by someone who's all over the state from Grand Junction, right? But it's like,
Mhm.
and so we run into that from an experience standpoint too. So I think part of that is that building your network. Don't forget to build your network with other realtors outside of your market. I don't necessarily need a big network of realtors in my local market. I need them outside the market, right?
Yeah, yeah. Pick up that directory from your local office and call
Mhm.
around, man. Because I mean, I get a significant amount of my business from out of state referrals as well, right? So I connect with people
Yeah.
from Washington and Oregon and California because that's I hail from the West Coast originally. I've been in Colorado
Mhm.
for should be 13 years here in August. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, so it's important to kind of spread your wings and connect with people outside your office, right?
Mhm.
And not to say that you couldn't list a place in Pagosa Springs, but I think it's important to say, like, do you have right now today an active working knowledge to take care of your client, right? Like, is it in your client's best interest
Right.
to list that property? Because at some
Right.
point, whether it's already been done or whether it's a couple weeks from now when you go live, you're going to sign a listing agreement, right? And that agreement says I put my client's needs above mine.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
if so, that means that you have to know what you're doing, man, right? And that's more than
Right.
just kind of hopping on, pulling an RPI report or finding access to the MLS in some way or shape or form, because you probably don't have it down there, right?
Right.
So just make the best decisions for your client, guys. It's going to be about, to your point, rewarding that behavior. So they said to you like, hey, I want your help. You did a great job helping me buy my place in Denver. We have our vacation home in Pagosa or whatever. And you can
Mhm.
say like, hey, I appreciate you calling me. The best way for me to take care of you is refer you to an agent who's a specialist in Pagosa Springs, right?
Right.
Call that person up, arrange a referral fee, take your referral fee, and let that person
Right.
get well taken care of. And
Right.
now you have all the more reason to stay in touch with this person, right? Because you can call
Right.
them a couple weeks from now, and be like, hey, I just want to make sure that you got in
Right.
contact with so and so, right? How are
Right.
they doing? How are you feeling about everything, right? And
Right.
you can be a good sounding board and make sure, obviously it's up to you. If you have a good relationship with this other agent, you probably want to connect with them and make sure you're able to echo the sentiment they're trying to relate to their client because they're taking
Mhm.
good care of them, right?
Right.
But guys, network, reach out. We talked about that all the time, right? So that's another great thing to build into your database. And
I also
I want to be
think.
clear about before when I was talking about these referral systems, because I think it's good to ask for referrals from other agents too,
Mhm.
like we're talking about right
Mhm.
now. But make sure you're going from the point of like giving first, especially if it's to your clients, right? So
Right.
your call can't be for the purpose of necessarily generating a referral from your client. It should be for like,
Right.
hey, I want to call and check in. I'm going to provide an item of value, annual property update. We're here in January. Great example. But while I'm talking to you, hey, oh, by the way, if there's anyone that that's looking to buy a house, can I count on you to give them my name and number? I would love to help
Yep.
them out. It's as
You
simple as
know,
that, guys. Yeah.
it's interesting how you say that. I go back to a number of years ago, probably 8 years ago now. I think you and I attended a Brian Buffini session. I
Mm-hmm.
think you and I did,
Mm-hmm.
and it was one of the things that Brian was pretty passionate about is we have to be involved in our spheres lives, right? So here's kind of two examples. If our only relationship was that we helped somebody buy a home, and we kind of, yeah, we had them on a drip campaign, yeah, we sent them things, but we never really engaged past that. Let's just say we never really engaged past that. And since then, they've had one child, maybe two, and we weren't
Mm-hmm.
even a part of the conversation. It's hard to then jump back in and like, make sure that I'm your guy. It's about being engaged and involved, right? That's one example. The other piece is also, I think sometimes as realtors, sometimes our counselor, and sometimes we're friend, and sometimes it's professional, sometimes personal. But like, what kind of use I have somebody who's in my sphere that I'm kind of helping them decide whether they want to take the leap and purchase their first investment property, right? And the initial piece was, they don't live in the state where the investment property is going to be, so that creates another dynamic, right,
Mhm.
of property management. It also creates a dynamic of being able to set it up properly to where it's a great experience, right? I know that you and Helen are very big on short-term rentals, and you've had numerous experiences, good and bad, right?
Right.
Stephanie and I've used them a handful of times. We don't have the experience that you do, but I can tell you one was an incredible experience. We would probably leverage that same property again, and then another one was it was horrible. Like, I was at a point where I would never do it again with short-term rental, right? I'll just go to a hotel. So you get those experiences. And I think sometimes people just look at it online from an analytics and go, oh, it's 170 or $200 a night. Well, that's fine. But are you going to physically go there? Are you going to set it up? Are you going to make sure everything works? What are you going to do? Are you just going to scratch a check and buy it? So when we started having some dialogue with that, it opened the conversation for a great property manager. It opened the conversation for buying an existing short-term rental that somebody has already done the work, right? It's
It's
already
furnished.
set up. It has the right Nest system. It has the right door codes. It has the right
Mhm.
internet. It has everything set up, right? Where it's just easy. Um, and also it's in the right location. Okay. So we just had some dialogue about this. So part of that is, so then further in the conversation, this client of mine is now going to blend two families. So he's getting married again. His kids
Mhm.
are getting a little bit older. Her kids are a little bit older. Well, what happened in the conversation was, Michael, I kind of need to sell my house. It's not in the right geographic location where my fiance lives, where I live, and the kids' school.
Mhm.
So that conversation that started with the first time rental turned into potentially 3 transactions, right? We might sell his house, we might sell her house, and then they're going to buy another one together, right? And then they're going to wait on the rental or investment property until 24 or 25. But just having a dialogue and being involved in their lives led to potentially an investment property to 3 transactions, right? And I think it goes back to the comment you just made, as being a giver first, right? Of being engaged, being involved. How are we a solutions oriented individual to get where we need to go? And then we become their trusted advisor. So that's one example. Another example is, I recently had someone reach out to me on a property that I own, and it was an event, a local event for tickets all around children.
Okay.
We don't have kids.
Yeah.
So this realtor that I happen to know isn't obvious, clearly is not engaged with me, clearly is not engaged with Stephanie, not engaged with our life at all whatsoever. Um, so those are just things that kind of turn people off. I think we got to be careful. It's not all things to all people. There are generic things, yes, but
Sure.
when you personally invite someone and their kids to an event, and we don't have kids.
Yeah, I think it's that. So the that your segue there made me think of 3 things. Just that are kind of in my head. So, the most recent one, or the most recent thing you talked about, reminds me of one of my really good friends. Like, I've helped them buy a couple properties. We actually own a property together. He was my wedding, one of my best friends, right? So, I'm like going to his place, probably watching a football game or a fight, and gonna have a beer or whatever. And he goes, "Dude, you gotta check this out." So he slides across his table this mailer that some realtor sent him, right? And I'm like, oh, it'll have like a brief beat of property data, which is pretty much always good. People are always interested in that, right?
Right.
Um, but it was essentially something to the effect of, considering getting divorced. I'm a lawyer who's worked with several divorce processes. I can handle this well. And so, and I was
Oh,
like, what's good? And I was like, dude, was someone like talking to a divorce lawyer, and they pulled in the state. He was like, I have no idea where this came from. This had to be 7-8 years ago, right? So it's still married. So I don't know, but I was like, man, that's like that takes some stones to mail that out, especially like broad spectrum, like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. And I think to kind
Mhm.
of back into a second to your point of like taking care of people and making sure you're staying
Mhm.
connected, right? So one of the things really instilled for me really early on in my career is you talked about always being the core, being the center of the real estate transaction. And I still use that language. It still sticks with me today, right? So I try to be as helpful of a resource as I can to my clients. And so, I mean, and I'm really happy about this, but a lot of my clients, a significant percentage, call me when they need real estate help, of course, but when they need a plumber, when they need an electrician, they need to find like a good restaurant near them. If they, like I just try to always be a resource for that, right? And
Good point.
it comes down to what we talked about, like local knowledge, right? So if I'm
Mhm.
driving around downtown Denver, I'm like, oh hey, there's a really good, whatever sushi place right there on the
Mhm.
corner, Fontana on 6th there. It's awesome. Check it out. So they know they'll go there and like, oh hey, this is good. So now next time needs a food recommendation, they give me a call. If they have an electrician issue, I'm like, oh hey, call my buddy Nick. He's great. He'll take care of you, and he won't bang you up too bad on price, right? So
Yeah.
then it's really easy for me to kind of make those connections, and now I'm a resource in more ways than just needing to buy or sell a home, right? And I love
Yeah.
that. I'm happy to do it, and those aren't things I like make money on, right? Like
Right.
no one's like Fontana Sushi isn't peeling me off because I sent them a client, right?
Right.
There, it's just I want my people to be taken care of, and I want to solidify that relationship in their head,
Right.
and when it comes to the short term rental place, like there's like Helen and I do when we travel, we typically will stay in Airbnb just be like we like, especially with the kid, man. It's nice to have like a kitchen. It's nice to have
Mhm.
a little more space to put his little pack and play and stuff like that, right? So
Sure.
I mean, so the one that comes to mind immediately is this place in New Orleans. It's
Mhm.
incredible. It's in a great location. It's right off the Marigny, so it's probably like a 8 block walk to to kind of the hot spots for going out. Obviously, this was pre-kid. We were doing this, guys. Calm down, universe. Um, but we've gone back there like 3 times because it's always really clean. It's always
Mhm.
really taken care of. And we went on Halloween like 5 years ago. We went back the next year, and like the spring, we took some friends and we were like, hey guys, come back for a second time. Really enjoyed our stay last time. And then process went through like normal, and we came back and opened the fridge, and there was this really nice handwritten note that was like, hey, it's so good to have you guys back. We loved you last time as guests. They left us like a couple like local like craft beers in there. It was just really, really nice, right? And so
Yeah.
we would never dream of going anywhere else in New Orleans
Right.
because that's just they remembered, or I told them, but they have the data, right? So they had like we all have data. They said, oh hey, Andrew and Helen have been here before. uh they gave us a good rating on Airbnb. We gave them a good rating on Airbnb, and so they're like, hey, let's reward this behavior, them coming back, right? We didn't have to ask, didn't
Right.
have to do anything. They just did something really easy, really simple, and really nice, and now they've got clients for as long as they own that place, right? Like anytime we go to New
Right.
Orleans, we're going to stay there. So it's just that simple, guys. It was like it cost them nothing, right? They probably had an automatic reminder that we were second time guests, and they spent you know $10 on 2 tall boys of craft beer and wrote a thank you note,
Mhm.
and it's that simple. So there's really simple things we can do to engage our clients on a personal way. Like
Mhm.
one tip I know I've told you and I've told a lot of our clients is if there's someone I'm helping move that has like a child, usually between the ages of like a year to 10 years old, right in that ballpark. Moving can be really hard. I moved around a lot as a kid, and so it can be tough having new friends, and I know you did too, being in military. So new friends, new teachers, new baseball team, new wrestling team, whatever it is, right? There's a lot of transition. It can be tough. And so there's a great little Berenstain Bears book called Moving Day. And it's just like that. It's, Brother Bear has a new baseball team, Sister Bear has a new teacher, and it really connects with them in a way that's fun and engaging. And guys, it's a $6 book that I'm not saying it's, going to change the world, but it's a way to connect with your kids when it might be difficult to have the words and it's difficult for them
Mhm.
to place themselves in, a long-term mindset, but they can engage the character they like and see they're going through things too. So it makes
Mhm.
it simpler for them, right? So something like that's really simple, man. If they got a dog, write down their dog's favorite treats and get them a
Yeah.
bag of that along with a bottle of wine. If they, I had a client one time, like I run an online D&D game I have for years, my friends and my brother. I had a client who was into Dungeons and Dragons. I saw the book on his shelf, so I got him some dice and like a little kind of
Mhm.
adventure to run with his in his new move to make some new geek friends out in New York.
Mhm.
It was really easy. It was really thankful, and I stick in their head. So I think that we can all get like the block of wood that has their name on it. We can all deliver the bottle of wine or champagne to the closing table, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, for closing table gifts for me are personal and small, but there's something that's going to engage them on a personal level. And then I think kind of going to our referral talk is about a month or so later, I'm going to call them up, be like, hey guys, I just want to come by, see the house is settled. I got a little something for you. I didn't bring it to closing. I wanted to drop it off today.
Yeah.
If you got time. So that's when I go drop off the bottle of wine. That's when I go drop, make my connection right there. Right. Because I mean, our job is not easy. We work really hard for our clients, but like it can be difficult for them to see our commission check and then us drop off a $40 bottle of wine. Like, all right, hey, thanks guys. So I think if we can just maybe separate a time gap from that and deliver kind of something small that's more personal, it's going to make them remember us, and then go in and check in about a month later and drop off a nice little bottle of wine or bottle of champagne or whatever your gift is. Obviously if there's people who don't drink alcohol, there's stuff for them too, but make a connection and then it's okay to say like, hey guys, love you doing the place, this is great. Have you told your friends and family, if anyone that you're connecting with needs help, can I count you to deliver my name and number? Would happy to help them out, right?
Right.
Or another thing we've talked about in the past is the house party. The housewarming party about 1 or 2 months in is a great thing. Connect with your lender friend, be like, hey man, like let's spend like $100 each and we'll buy some drinks and some snacks. We'll get some people over there. And then you can make connections to a whole new swath of people you don't have to ask, right? Then it's on you to go over there and be your charming self and talk to people. So that's another great tool in our pocket as realtors. Like, and obviously everyone wins there. Like we get a chance to talk to people, and don't be a chump, be a good date, like circulate, don't make it about you. It's about their house, but it's okay to have conversations and it's going to come up. And then you've, been able to kind of help your clients welcome people to their new home, and it's basically free for them. Right. So those are a couple tips I like, like have that gap between the closing table gift and the housewarming party, man, is sweet, dude. If you can put a budget around it and connect with your lender that's worked on the purchase with you on it, it's a sweet thing to do.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of these, thoughts are part of that 555 program, right? As people's, things, especially coming off of the holiday and the first part of the year, it's very, very popular. People, do a lot of vacations, especially to warm climates in the winter. It's a great reason to reach out to people and have a conversation. It's a great reason to say that you noticed, right? And also at the same time, it's incredibly thoughtful. So, I think we had at one time, we had a 1,000 ideas that were free or something like that. And these, all of the things you're talking about are part of that list, right? It's just about being engaged with our sphere. And I think that's why, a lot of times, I might get the stat wrong, but I think it's 78% to 85%, something along that line of realtors don't follow up after closing.
It's 83.
I
looked it up this morning. It's 83%. That was as of like 2019, but I can't imagine it shifted that much. So
So imagine all those opportunities sitting out there of homes that have been sold in the last 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and realtors just never followed up. They never stayed in touch with anything. And I think it's different. I think if it's a primary market, the data and the information is going to be very different than for somebody who owns a home in a second home market, right? Because the second home market, they want different things from you because they don't live there, right? Versus the primary market. So I think as an agent, we tailor that to what data or what information that client may want to receive from us, right? I think it's just a huge mistake that that a lot of realtors make. I mean, we're especially with social, you and I see a lot of it. And a lot of it, to go back to what we talked about at the beginning, was dissecting information. And a lot of the information that's out there, even today, is just not true. It's just not correct. And so when our clients or our sphere or our family or friends make comments like, that's just not correct. That's not what's happening here.
Well, I feel like there's real estate's a moving target, man. Not a lot of information is evergreen, so I think that we can post something on a Monday and have it be not true on a Friday, right? So it's important to have it be a living, breathing conversation, right? So, but I think we both are, maybe frustrated is not the right word, but we fail to understand why that realtors don't continue to make those connections with their clients who have done such a great thing for us. They've entrusted us with the purchase or the sale of their home. Why do you think that is? Why do you think 83% of people just don't follow up with someone who they were talking to probably a couple times a week just a month ago, right? What do you think the reason is there?
Well, I
think fear. Is it are they just not? Is it time? What's
I think it's a couple things. I think first and foremost, I'm not convinced that every firm or independent has any type of system or process in place to do that. Like our Thrive program does that. And sometimes we don't see the power of the Thrive program. Sometimes it's a year, 2, 3 years later, right? The other piece of it is, generally speaking, in our industry, people do every single piece of marketing you can imagine. And then they get really, really busy. And then they stop doing all of those marketings and those things. Okay. Then the other piece of it is, there are some, not all, that are very transactional. They're transactional in, let's just get it done, get it listed and sold, get it bought and sold, and move on to the next, right? And there's not really a purpose to some of that. It's not a relationship. I have felt that we are in the people business, and that's our role, right? All the way through. We're not in the house business. The house happens to be a product that gets bought and sold, but we're really in the people business, solving problems and solutions, right? And providing solutions. And I think that a lot of people look at, sometimes the success or failures is just all about them, right? And we see it all the time, right? In marketing. This house sold for, $100,000. Well, the realtor didn't really do anything there. It just happened to be a buyer. The buyer could shoulder that, right? Sometimes when you're with a buyer, it's like, I did this, I did that. Well, the reality of it is, the buyer is the one with the money. The buyer is the one doing the transaction. We're in the middle navigating it, right? Helping our client making good decisions, whether it's a sale or a purchase, right? And helping them with our sphere and our database and our clientele. And sometimes I think in our industry, the spotlight and the megaphone is on the agent. And in my mind, it just shouldn't be, right? It's about our client and what they're doing, and how we're being a good steward to them in the transaction. Does that make sense?
It does, and I know you and I have a similar approach to this, but I think we're on team sell this house or team buy this house, right?
There you go.
And then
Yep.
so that's so it's the client is the quarterback, they're the one running the show. We're there to be supportive. So is the lender. So is the title rep. So is the appraiser. So is honestly the agent representing the other client as well, because we're all on one large team. Obviously, we have our client to protect, right? But we are on one large team of this transaction going through successfully and smoothly and in a fair and equitable way, right? So I don't think that necessarily me doing a good job for my client, being the buyer or seller side, is raking the other side over the coals and squeezing as much as I can out of them, right? I want my client to have a great experience. I want them to get the best value they can when they're selling or when they are buying. But I think sliding towards a fair and equitable transaction is the easiest way to service that, to make sure it's going to go smoothly and there's not going to be this crazy fight over every little single detail of the transaction. And also it serves a larger marketplace, right? Like if we overpay or underpay for any given home, it impacts, while my client may have may feel really bad about overpaying or feel really bad about underpaying, it also impacts the market as a whole, right? If there's this really weird outlier, then it impacts the entire market. It's going to impact the neighbor's price point and all that good stuff. And it makes the data sour. Right. So it's protect your client, do the best you can for them, get them the best you can, 100%. There's no question about that. But it's also important to understand that the seller or the buyer, in whichever case you are, they're not like the opposition. They are also a function of getting this thing to closing. And we have to work with them in a way that's going to be equitable and fair and kind. You don't need to go be a jerk to anybody. Just get the deal done, man. It's as simple as that, right? And you and I've talked about 1,000 times, like by and large, a $1 million home is going to sell for $1 million, whether you price it at 1.5 million or 900,000, right? So we're going to get to about the right number. There might be some outliers where some person walks in the door and throws down cash, and it is what it is. Right. But largely, we're going to be roughly in the same spot. So let's get there in a way that's going to be equitable and fair and easy for everyone, rather than this tooth and nail, 1,000 amends to extend the deal. Like, it's like, guys, let's just get there, man. What are we really fighting over here at the end of the day? But I like it, man. And I don't know if you get this a lot, but when I'm talking to new agents, especially, or even some more experienced agents that maybe are trying to reconnect with their sphere, I get I just don't want to be seen pushy. I don't want to seem pushy. Do you ever get that? Yeah. I hear that a lot from agents, right? Yeah. And I mean, this is, as long as we're being blunt here, I'm like, it's okay to be a little bit pushy, guys. It's okay to, in the sense of, not in the sense of, again, of give me your referrals, but in the sense of, hey, I'm here to help. I'm going to talk to you 2 to 3 times a year, no matter what. And the call is going to be about you. and about
Right.
I can give you, or how you doing at least,
Mhm.
right? But during that call, I'm going to ask consistently if there's anyone else that you know are related to or work with that I can help out. And
Right.
can I count you to deliver my name and
Right.
number?
Right.
If that's pushy, guys, I'm going to be pushy. I don't know. If same
Right.
by the same virtue of like sending out mailers or sending out or doing some social media advertising,
Mhm.
if entering someone's email address in so that they occasionally see a video of me jabber jabbering on their Facebook feed is pushy, I'm going to be pushy.
Right.
Am I going to call someone, 10 times a day for a week to try
No.
to get a referral? Am I
No.
going to go chase them down and beat on their door a couple times? No, but I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to ask. And
Mhm.
if that's pushy, I'm going to be pushy, guys. I don't know. I think some people use, oh, I don't want to be pushy as a crutch for, I don't want to do the work.
Well, I think it's also,
Like,
I think it's about, on one hand, people want to be maybe genuine and authentic and and they want to have a relationship with people in their sphere of their life. I think what happens is that we're also in a business that people don't maybe buy and sell a house every year.
right.
Sometimes it's 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. So there's big gaps between some of our clients, right?
Mhm.
I have an investor client that at one point in time was they were buying a house a quarter, and then they haven't bought anything in 5, 6, 7, 8 years and bought anything,
Mhm.
right? Because they got their portfolio and they're done, kind of scenario. But at some point, those will eventually hit the market, as a sale at some point, right?
Mhm.
The other thing is that, let's go back to what we talked about. It's not about being pushy. It's our role to remind people that we're in the real estate industry. It's our business. It's our livelihood. It's our career, right? It's how we put food on our table too. Just like some have a W-2 job, some own a company or whatever. It's about working together for the same common goals, right? And as long as those goals are serving your buyer or seller, as you said earlier,
Mhm.
team seller or team buyer, then I think we're doing our job correctly. A buddy of mine, he's in the financial services industry. I remember him saying to me one time, this is every single person he ever met and whoever crossed his path. You're going to go in my database and you're going to get an email from me and you're going to get a phone call from me until you respectfully tell me not to do it. Right. The one thing that I do with a buyer is I just tell them through conversation, like when we're walking through a house, sometimes we're going to lunch, sometimes we're at closing. I say, look, you're going to get updates from me, as you just said, a couple of times a year. I like to do what's called a annual property review. Depending upon the situation, we may go through it together, or I may email it to you. It'll dictate what you want me to do, and I'll send you information about the neighborhood and the community on a periodic basis, right? If you ever don't want that, it's not a problem. You can just unsubscribe from it. But I want you to know that I'm here as those life changes happen, right? And I think
Mhm.
if we set it up that way, I can't think of only just a handful in my 16 years of people that have just flat out unsubscribed from things like that. Most people
Mhm.
want to get it. A lot of people don't always look at it, always read
Right.
it. But you know what? It's my name in their inbox, on a regular periodic basis, or it's a phone call, or it's a social media post, right? Things like that. So I think, um,
Yeah.
again, it's just staying in front of people in a very thoughtful manner.
Yeah, and like I said, I've had a handful of people unsubscribe too.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had anyone be rude. I don't think I've
No,
anyone
no,
ever say, like,
no.
how dare you send this to me, or
Right.
how dare you give me a call? Like,
Right.
and again, guys, I want to this is not like
Right.
my call and my outreach is never in service of me getting a referral. It's
Right.
a part of my process. I think it's a strong one. I think it's one that you should consider, not just in the real estate industry, but
Mhm.
as a entrepreneur person who lives off referrals, right? Like
Right.
unless you're going out there and buying leads from some sort of lead source and trying to
Right.
convert those,
Right.
you're gonna need to get repeat business, and you're gonna need to have people refer you
Right.
to grow your business, guys.
Right. Right.
And I think people come to expect it, and if you do it in a way that's respectful and obviously client first, like call to
Mhm.
give them a property review, call them, tell them, hey, it's getting cold outside. Were a first time home buyer last year. We need to winterize. A lot of
Mhm.
people don't know that. In Colorado, we have a lot of evaporative coolers that people don't know how they work, especially if they're not
Right.
from Colorado,
Mhm.
right? So those need to be winterized unless you want water damage. So
Right.
it's important to inform your clients of this, right? And so those
Mhm.
are great examples of, again, time blocking, sitting down on your Tuesday or your Thursday past client calls for
Mhm.
2 hours, just cranking out like, hey, Michael, how you enjoying the new house? Things are going great.
Mhm.
Hey, I would have made this call probably in October, but hey, it's getting a little colder outside. Are you familiar with how to winterize your home? Oh no, here. Well, I got some great kind of step-by-step process to send to you. I'll send you an email right now, especially with
Yeah.
that swamp cooler, man. You're gonna want to get that taken care of because
Right.
it's great in the summertime. If you don't winterize, it can be a problem, right? So
Right.
it's important to send that information out.
Right.
And and I don't even necessarily do it every time, but I
Right.
think referral acquisition should be a part of your business and should be part of your marketing strategy going forward.
Right. Well, good, man. So we're bumping up on an hour here.
Yep. Sorry, I can talk.
I love it. No, it's good. I mean, I think these are great. So I hope you have an incredible weekend. And we've got a
Mhm.
lot kind of going on. I mean, obviously in our company, but I guess until maybe next week. I hope you have a awesome Friday and a great weekend.
You as well. Yeah. So we'll talk to you guys next week. Again, if you guys ever have anything you want to cover, let us know. Looking forward to kind of wrapping up January here and then getting to February. And yeah, it's gonna be off to a great year. So
Awesome. Very cool. Well, good to see you, my man.
good to see you guys too. All right. See you guys later.
Bye.